There is a very specific moment in a man's life when everything shifts, when he finally understands that chasing a woman who's pulling away is the fastest way to lose her, and pulling back is the only way to get her attention again. Key point one is the foundation of everything: emotional detachment. Not pretending, not acting, not playing some childish game, but genuinely removing your emotional dependence from her and returning that energy back to yourself. Because the truth is simple: she can't miss you if you never leave. She can't feel your absence if you're always available. She can't feel any spark of attraction if you're the one constantly reaching out, constantly trying, constantly doing all the emotional lifting. Women don't come back because you convince them. They come back because they feel something they didn't expect. And nothing triggers that feeling faster than a man who stops chasing. When you pull back, she begins noticing a shift. The messages she used to take hours to reply to suddenly stop coming altogether. The calls she used to ignore never ring anymore. The validation she assumed would always be there disappears. That's when curiosity starts creeping in. She begins asking herself questions she never asked before. Why isn't he chasing me? Why isn't he trying to fix this? Did he move on? Did he stop caring? Those questions create emotional tension, and that tension restarts attraction. But detaching emotionally isn't just about her, it's about you reclaiming your power. When you stop chasing, you don't sit around waiting for her to come back. You redirect all that emotional horsepower into your goals, your health, your stability, your mindset. You stop making her the center of your world and start placing yourself back at the top. That shift is magnetic. Women don't return to desperation, they return to strength. They don't return to chaos, they return to certainty. And when a man detaches, it naturally restores the masculine, feminine polarity she was unconsciously craving all along. Most men never understand this. They think effort is what keeps a woman. But effort without attraction feels like pressure. It suffocates the connection, it makes her pull away. Emotional detachment removes that pressure. It gives her space to feel, it gives her room to choose you again. Because when she feels the gap your presence once filled, when she notices the calmness in your silence, when she sees you rising without her, she starts second guessing everything. That's when doubt enters her mind. That's when she wonders if she misjudged you. That's when she regrets walking away from a man who wasn't broken without her but better. Emotional detachment isn't a strategy to get her back. It's a path to becoming the man who no longer needs her to feel complete. And that transformation is exactly what makes her return. When a woman pulls away or walks out of your life, most men make the same mistake. They freeze. They sit in heartbreak, confusion, overthinking, and emotional paralysis. They stop moving, stop growing, stop improving, and wait for her to return as if their entire life depends on her decision. But the truth is, nothing brings a woman back faster than a man who refuses to let her absence slow him down. Key point two is all about redirecting your entire focus back onto the one thing you can control: yourself. Not her emotions, not her choices, not her behavior, your purpose, your growth, your identity, your future. Because when you shift your energy away from her and into becoming your best self, everything changes. Women don't fall for the man who crumbles when she leaves. They fall even harder for the man who rises. When she steps back, your job isn't to chase. Your job is to evolve. And evolution doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in the quiet, lonely seasons of your life when you finally realize that relying on someone else for emotional stability is the biggest trap a man can fall into. So you take all the pain, the disappointment, the confusion, and you channel it into becoming the strongest, most grounded version of yourself. You hit the gym harder, you work on your finances, you elevate your mindset, you upgrade your lifestyle. You build the man you were always capable of becoming but never prioritized because you were too busy pouring energy into someone who stopped appreciating it. And here's the irony: the moment you stop waiting for her, she starts noticing. She sees you moving differently, speaking differently, carrying yourself differently. She feels a shift in your energy even from a distance. Women are incredibly sensitive to changes in a man's focus. When your attention is on her, she feels it. When your attention leaves her and returns to your life, she feels that too. And that shift alone often triggers her curiosity more than any apology or long message ever could. But understand, this path of growth isn't about impressing her. It's about outgrowing the version of you that depended on her. It's about raising your standards so high that even if she does come back, she has to earn her place again. You're not improving for her, you're improving because a man who stays stagnant becomes forgettable, but a man who evolves becomes unforgettable. Once you begin pouring all your energy into becoming better, stronger, wiser, calmer, wealthier, more focused, she begins to feel the loss, not of the man you were, but of the man you are becoming without her involvement. Growth is the ultimate form of silent revenge, silent attraction, and silent clarity. When she sees you rising, she realizes you weren't waiting, begging, or breaking. You were rebuilding. And that's when everything in her begins to shift. That's when her doubt begins. That's when her curiosity wakes up. And that's exactly when a return becomes inevitable. There's a moment in every connection where the energy shifts, and most men don't even realize why. Attraction doesn't disappear because a woman suddenly stopped liking you. It disappears because the emotional polarity that once made her feel drawn to you slowly faded away. Key point three is about restoring the exact energy that made her fall for you in the beginning. Not through words, not through pressure, but through the natural confidence and grounded masculinity that comes from you redefining who you are. In the early stages, she felt something strong because you were centered, relaxed, unbothered, and fully in your masculine frame. You weren't chasing, overthinking, or trying to win her approval. You were simply being yourself, calm, confident, and focused on your life. That energy created emotional polarity. It made her feel feminine, comfortable, drawn toward you. But when a man starts investing more than he should, starts over giving, starts needing reassurance, starts acting emotionally reactive, that polarity flips. Instead of feeling safe and drawn in, she feels pressure, and pressure kills desire. Recreating that emotional pull starts with reclaiming your masculine presence. It requires you to stop reacting to her emotional fluctuations and start showing stability she didn't expect. Instead of responding instantly, you move at your own pace. Instead of getting affected by her mood shifts, you remain calm and steady. Instead of seeking validation, you carry yourself like a man who already has value, because you do. This shift alone begins to change her internal experience of you. She feels the difference. She notices the return of that centered energy she felt at the beginning. What women are attracted to is not just what a man does, it's how he makes her feel. And a calm, confident, emotionally secure man makes her feel something she can't easily replicate elsewhere. When she senses that grounded masculine presence again, it awakens the same emotional familiarity she once loved. She feels safe to lean back. She feels drawn into your silence rather than repelled by it. She starts to remember why she chose you in the first place. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to force anything. When you stop chasing and start living with intention, your energy naturally shifts back to its original state. You become more focused, more purposeful, more disciplined. You speak less but with more meaning. You move slower but with more certainty. That presence is magnetic. It's the version of you she couldn't get enough of. And when she senses that shift, the attraction that faded doesn't just return, it returns stronger, because now she sees the difference between the man who over pursued and the man who stands tall in his frame. This is how emotional polarity is restored, not by convincing her, not by explaining yourself, not by trying harder, but by rediscovering the version of yourself that never needed to chase in the first place, the version she felt deeply connected to. Once you reconnect with that energy, she can't help but feel the pull back toward you, because that masculine presence is the one thing she always felt safest around. There's a power in absence that most men completely underestimate, and key point 4 is all about understanding that silence can speak louder than words ever could. When a woman pulls away, when she doubts or hesitates, most men respond with messages, calls, or explanations. They try to fix the situation to persuade her to chase her back. But that approach only diminishes your value and prolongs her disinterest. The moment you step back and allow your silence and absence to do the talking, you create an entirely new dynamic, one that forces her to confront her own feelings without you intervening. Your absence becomes a stage on which she reevaluates everything. Silence isn't passive, it isn't doing nothing. It's an active demonstration of self-control and emotional intelligence. By not reacting, not chasing, not pleading, you show her that your time, energy, and attention are valuable. She begins to notice that her usual influence over your behavior no longer works. That's the subtle but undeniable message: you're no longer emotionally dependent on her, and you're no longer available at her convenience. Women are wired to respond to energy, not words. When the emotional pull disappears, curiosity arises. She starts asking herself why you're no longer available, why you're not reacting, and why you're moving forward without her. And that curiosity plants the seeds of attraction and regret simultaneously. Your absence allows her to feel what she took for granted. When you stop overextending, overexplaining, and overgiving, she finally experiences the gap you leave behind. That gap is powerful. It makes her reflect on the consistency, loyalty, and presence she once ignored. She begins to recognize the value of what she lost, not because you told her, but because your behavior naturally communicates it. Silence is the clearest form of communication when it's paired with growth and composure. She can't argue with absence. She can't dismiss it. She can only feel it, and feelings are far stronger than arguments. The more you maintain your composure, focus on your life, and live with purpose, the more intense that effect becomes. She observes your calmness, your confidence, and your independence even from a distance. That observation creates a subtle but powerful internal tension for her, wondering why you aren't chasing, regretting past mistakes, and realizing that the man she once took for granted has become someone unattainable without effort. Absence creates a contrast that no amount of chasing could ever manufacture. It makes your value visible in a way that presence never could, because presence without boundaries often becomes invisible. Ultimately, letting your silence and absence do the talking isn't about punishing her or playing games. It's about demonstrating self-respect, emotional control, and the masculine power of non-attachment. It shifts the energy from neediness to confidence, from desperation to calm authority, and that shift is what draws her back naturally and irresistibly. Ending line: only silence and absence speak the truth your words never could, and that truth is magnetic. There's a truth most men never fully grasp. A woman doesn't return to the old version of you. She comes back to the man who has grown, who has leveled up, who no longer waits for her validation. Key point 5 is all about building a life so compelling that she can't ignore it. It's not about changing for her, it's about becoming the man you were always capable of being. When she sees that your world doesn't revolve around her anymore, that your energy, focus, and purpose are no longer tied to her approval, the attraction that once faded begins to reignite, and this time it's magnetic, undeniable, and self-sustaining. Women are naturally drawn to men who operate from growth, strength, and independence. When a man spends his time obsessing over a woman who walked away, he becomes smaller, weaker, and less attractive. But when a man redirects that energy toward building his life, something shifts. Fitness, career, social status, emotional stability, and mental clarity. All of these elements become part of your presence, and they radiate without effort. She senses that shift. She notices the man you've become. And the contrast between the version of you she once dismissed and the version of you she now sees is what sparks her curiosity, doubt, and eventual desire to return. Building a life she wants to return to doesn't require grand gestures or showy displays. It starts with discipline and self-respect. It's about creating daily habits that elevate you, consistent work on your body, mind, and ambitions. It's about surrounding yourself with people who respect your time and energy. It's about developing confidence so deep that you no longer chase validation or approval from anyone, especially her. That lifestyle becomes a silent signal that you've transformed, and women feel transformation instinctively. They sense the difference between a man who waits and a man who evolves, between a man who reacts and a man who creates. Another crucial factor is authenticity. You aren't building this life to impress her. You're building it because a man who stays stagnant is destined to be overlooked, while a man who grows becomes unforgettable. Your progress and independence are proof that your worth isn't dependent on anyone else. And that reality is what makes her regret taking your presence for granted. She sees the man she thought she could walk away from thriving without her involvement, and it creates an irresistible tension. She begins to ask herself whether she underestimated your value, whether she should have acted differently, whether she lost something she can't easily replace. The key is consistency. Growth isn't a one-time display, it's a permanent shift. By committing to becoming your highest version and living a life that reflects that, your energy naturally draws her back without manipulation, begging, or chasing. She doesn't return because of words or promises, she returns because of the man you've become. And when she comes back, she does so respecting your standards, your space, and your new boundaries. Ending line: only build a life that elevates you, and she will be drawn back not to the old you, but to the man she can't ignore. There comes a moment when a woman who once doubted, ignored, or walked away begins to realize the man she left behind is no longer the same. Key point 6 is about what happens when she comes back and you stand firm in your new standards. This isn't about arrogance, manipulation, or playing games. It's about maintaining the calm, confident frame you rebuilt while she was absent. A man who evolves, focuses on his life, and becomes emotionally independent doesn't revert to old patterns. He doesn't chase, plead, or compromise his self-respect. That unwavering presence is magnetic, and it ensures that if she returns, it's on your terms, and that is what ultimately determines whether she stays. When a woman comes back, she often expects the man she left to be the same, available, reactive, and eager to please. She anticipates that her return will be effortless, that he will immediately resume chasing, and that the old dynamic will be restored. But a man who has grown doesn't allow history to repeat itself. He doesn't lower his standards or compromise the boundaries he established. He doesn't reward absence with overattention. By maintaining his frame, he communicates value silently, showing that his worth was never dependent on her presence, approval, or affection. That firmness creates a polarity she can't resist because it reintroduces the emotional tension and attraction she once felt. Standing firm also teaches her accountability. When she sees that you no longer tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or lack of effort, she begins to understand the true cost of walking away. She recognizes that the man she took for granted isn't the same man she left behind. He is stronger, calmer, more grounded, and more selective with his energy. That realization often leads to genuine respect and desire. She doesn't come back out of fear, guilt, or obligation. She comes back because she's confronted with the version of you that she genuinely wants to be part of. That is the ultimate form of attraction, a man who is unshakable, self-assured, and fully aware of his value. It's also important to remember that standing firm doesn't mean emotional coldness or detachment from life. It means clarity and consistency. You welcome her presence if it aligns with your life and values, but you never compromise your principles or priorities for someone who previously walked away. This balance of availability and non-attachment creates irresistible polarity. She is drawn to your energy because it reflects freedom, confidence, and high standards, all qualities that naturally attract women who are ready to commit sincerely. By maintaining this frame, you also protect yourself from repeating past mistakes. You avoid emotional dependency, overinvestment, and the cycle of chasing. Instead, you create a relationship dynamic that is balanced, healthy, and sustainable. If she chooses to return, it is because she is genuinely invested, not because she senses weakness or desperation. Your growth and firmness ensure that the attraction she feels is authentic, lasting, and aligned with the man you have become. Ending line: only when she comes back. Standing firm in your new standards ensures she returns to the man she truly wants, not the one she once took for granted.